and you're sitting here telling them what works in your house should work in their house. That's not factual. It's not logical.
I was defending myself.
Well, but ma'am, you're on the show.
You're tuned in to Kaz TV.
Hey, how are you doing, my friend?
What's going on?
Oh, man. A little bit of everything. A little bit of everything. How's your day going?
Going well. It's going well.
Wonderful.
So the other guy that usually joins me, he was running late, so I figured we just go ahead and get started.
Fine.
So for everybody that doesn't know, I'm going to put this again on my YouTube. So I'm sure all the people in here now know who you are, but we're here with the Prison Doctor. If you don't mind, can you share just a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, where you're out of, and just kind of what you stand for?
So my name is Myron. They call me the Prison Doctor. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Grew up very privileged from a well-known family in Detroit. My dad was a Motown funk brother who played with Marvin Gaye on What's Going On and Let's Get It On, all the old school songs back in the day. And grew up very privileged, man. But one day, none of that good stuff stopped me from picking up a gun, and I wound up committing an armed robbery. I took a car when I was 19 years old, and it cost me damn near 20 years of my life in prison for that crime. I went in as a black belt in Taekwondo, so fortunately, I didn't have a lot of problems that most people going into prison with that kind of time would have. I went in determined to be better than my environment and to do something positive with my life. So I studied all the self-help groups that they offered, like life skills and thinking for change and cage your rage and mediation skills and conflict resolution. And I mastered those curriculums so much so that they made me a lead facilitator in prison where I was teaching other inmates about those curriculums. Fast forward 20 years later, I come home and my brother encouraged me to start a 501c3 to mentor at-risk youth and to help kids not go to the place that I had just came from. So I did that. I started a 501c3 called Prison Doc Inc., and it just exploded. I would go into homes of gang members and kids who were calling their mothers B's and H's, and 9-year-olds pulling guns on their mothers, 10-year-olds who would weaponize the police against their own parents by threatening to get them locked up, by falsely accusing them of abuse or whatever the case was. And so I would go into those homes and I would get those kids on the right track. I have a program that is bar none. It's a very effective program where we know how to scare kids straight, but also how to love them straight, because that is something that's absent in a lot of our homes, is the father is not there, and there's no mention of God or love, and children are just going wild. So that's kind of like my program in a nutshell. It is #1 in the nation currently. We have over 30 million views on our social media platforms, including TikTok, and we are saving lives. We've saved over 2,000 children in the last 10 years of the Prison Doctor organization. We've just saved over 300 here in Atlanta in over the past year and a half. I've traveled to over 30 different states in the past 90 days. 30 different states in the past 90 days, mentoring children from New York, Brooklyn, California, Florida, you name it, I've been there. So that's pretty much, it in a nutshell.
Wow, man, that's crazy. So how long have you been doing this? How long has the Prison Doctor been going around and helping these families, helping these kids?
Well, as I said, literally, man, from the first 90 days I got home from prison is when I started doing this. I was doing this before I made it a 501c3. Okay. When I came home, I was so discouraged and disgusted with the way I was seeing our children, our teenagers behave, particularly our black kids. I was very disturbed, man. The pants sagging, the language, guys calling women B's and H's. And, if you didn't know any better, you would think that was the girl's name because she would respond to it. So I came home to a world, man, that was far different, vastly different than what it was before I went in, man. The children smoking weed, at 9 and 10 years old, you know, I would drive down the street, man, in my car when I first came home, and I would see parents get their kids strapped in the back seat. I'm talking about infants strapped in the back seat while they're rolling down the street, talking about roll up the window so they can get more high off the blunt, so the smoke won't get out. And I would look in the back seat, there's a damn toddler in the back seat. So these types of things, man, it was just shocking to me. I came home to a culture shock, man. And the music, how it was just destroying our children's minds, man. And the things that women was doing on social media with their ass out, their breasts revealed. Everybody wants to be an instant Instagram star or YouTube star, and they were doing things to degrade themselves to get a little notoriety from some strange people off social media. I was disgusted by it, and I just decided to do something about it.
So it's interesting. Have you heard of the frog in the boiling water experiment?
I haven't heard that.
So there was an experiment that some university did years ago where they took a frog and they put it in normal water. Then they put it in boiling hot water and hopped out because it was too hot. Then they put it in lukewarm water and slowly increased the temperature over time. And as they slowly increased the temperature, the frog never noticed the difference. Then it got to that boiling level, and once it got there, the frog died. And you know what I think is interesting is this: you were kind of removed from culture for 20 years. So you weren't in the process of it slowly turning up. So when you hop back in, you're like, man, this water's hot. And everyone else is probably like, I didn't notice anything.
Exactly.
I didn't notice anything different. And so it's funny that you mentioned that because, you know, we've mentioned this a lot on our lives about how the culture changing and how there's such a, especially in the Black culture, how there's such a huge almost self-destructive culture by the music and the media and things like that. And sometimes the response is, oh, no, it's always been like that. But we think that just because we've been in it the whole time and we haven't noticed the slowly turning up the temperature. And so,
very good analogy.
I think it makes sense that you said once you came back, you're like, what is this? This is totally different. So,
it's you know, I always speak about Motown. You know, back then, you know, groups called themselves the Supremes, meaning the highest. You had groups that called themselves the Miracles. You had groups calling themselves things that were productive and that made sense. It edified you. Today, these groups are calling themselves things that would shock the conscience of any human being. Just so degrading. The lyrics back then, even though, you know, they would sing about love and sexual things, but they sung a lot about family. They sung a lot about faithfulness and being locked down with one sweetheart, one girl, one wife. They sung about things of romancing a particular girl they had a crush on. You understand? Today, that's not the music we're hearing. Today, you're hearing about how these guys are banging 5 and 6 different women, and it's okay. Today, the lyrics are about how you put it in some girl's mouth and you know what I mean? It's very, very, very in your face. And it's very disrespectful to young women. It's very disrespectful to all women.
Everybody.
To everybody. It's very disrespectful. It's very disrespectful that we can have a song that went platinum, you know, it was about 15 years ago, called Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent. And this song literally went platinum overnight. Get rich or die trying. In other words, forget your life, just get rich. I've just placed money to a higher value than my own human life. And that song went platinum overnight. And that sung a strong message to a lot of our youth that don't worry about getting killed, get money. These are the kind of songs that they promote today, and our kids are consuming this garbage, and it is very, very destructive. And it's the same thing with our television. With things that we're watching on our television set is just as harmful to our children. Now, forgive me, but you invited me on your show. I am not one to play with the truth or to bite my tongue.
Good.
This transgender, transsexual crap is destroying our young black men, all men, period, but particularly our young black men. It is very troubling where you cannot turn on your TV or watch a commercial and it doesn't have some form of homosexuality or transgender garbage. You understand? That is a very, very problematic thing with our society, particularly with our men. Now, I don't hate transgender people. I don't hate homosexual people. I love them. I just do not excuse their madness or their behavior. Just like the law did not excuse my robbery behavior, and I don't excuse it. So if I can be held accountable by the sins that I have committed, and there's a punishment behind it, or I can be judged by my sins, which I literally was judged by a judge and sentenced for it, then a transsexual or a person who is living against God, which I am a God man, I stand by the word, and I'm willing to die for it and the truth of it. We cannot, as a society, continue to pacify this homosexual, transgender stuff. You understand? Now, again, let me reiterate. I love homosexual people. I love transgender people. I love robbers. You understand? Now, the only person in that equation of sin I don't love is the rapist. I can't stand him. But everybody else that's sinful, including myself, I love you. But we have to be able to call a spade a spade. It is not right. It is against nature. It is against God. And we have to stop filtering that crap through our communities.
And the crazy thing about it is I just saw a post the other day where it's like a child's Netflix show where they're talking about it in a kids show. Where this kids show is saying, oh, well, I'm non-binary or something like that. And I'm just wondering, like, you know, I remember at the beginning when this stuff was pushed, it was kind of like, it's just so people can have their own rights. And people are like, okay. But then there were some people like, no, they're going to push this on kids. And people are like, no, you're crazy. That's never going to happen. But that's what's going on. You know?
It is an attack. It is an attack on our young children. You understand? I'm telling you not what I think. I'm telling you what I know. It is an intentional attack to demasculate the black males in the homes, okay? This is across the board with all males, white and black. But it is targeted a little more stronger into the black communities. It is a shame where now in schools they're telling kids that they can identify as an animal. They are literally telling children that if they want to be identified as a damn cat, that they can meow when they're being called into roll call. That they don't have to say, here. They can literally go, meow.
So,
and that's, it sounds ridiculous. And
that does.
I would laugh if it was a joke. It is that serious.
The crazy thing is, and here's the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Christian on. He works in schools as well. He works with some troubled youth as well. And a lot of the stuff you're saying, he can probably resonate with even better than myself. But that is crazy that you know, most people from the outside in would see that and say, there's no way that's going on. And then when people bring that up, they just say, yeah, that's not really going on. But you, and then Christian can probably attest to this, that these things really are going on in the schools and, you know, in the homes and things like that. And I do have a list of questions that I want to get to about that. But yeah, I think, Christian, some of the things that he's noticing, I remember you've mentioned with me. Go ahead and talk about some of that.
Yeah, I mean, so he's right. You know, the school system that even me and you once knew, you know, just a couple of years ago has totally changed. It's all different now. The whole inclusion thing is you have to call a he, she by whatever they want to be called, right? Like he said with the meow. He's not lying. You have to do that. Like, that's one of the things that's like, when you work in those systems, like, you have to go by that, right? But yeah, it's just a totally different system from what we knew, man. Just even like a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, maybe. Just a totally different system.
Exactly. And pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
the thing is, for me, I don't go through legislatures, or I don't go through, people to necessarily do the work that I'm doing. When I see a problem, I identify it and I go into solve mode, right? Which is what men are supposed to do, right? We go into fix it mode, right? Mm. We can't see a problem happening with our children that is destructive and get into a docile mode where we just don't do nothing and we wait for others to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves. So I'm a very much a person that gets the job done. I don't shake hands and kiss babies. I don't care about photo ops with the mayor or the governor. I've had opportunities to do such, but I've turned down these types of things because I knew that it was all a gimmick and a photo op. What I care about is change. Now, I said that to say this, that we know that this stuff is happening in our schools with our children. Mm-hmm. We know this to be a fact. It is saddening me that I don't see enough men who are stepping up and take more of an aggressive role in stopping this madness. Not just sitting by and voting, and everybody's talking about, well, let's take it to the vote box next year. Well, see, the problem with waiting to vote to get the right people in office to make the changes legally is that in the interim today, some little girl is getting molested while you and I are on this Instagram Live. Right now, some little child is being molested. Right now, some little 13-year-old boy is carrying a gun about to commit an armed robbery and victimize some person. Right now, somebody needs our help while we're talking on this live. So the mindset cannot be, well, let's just wait until voting election or next season. Hell, that could be 2 or 3 years down the line. And change may not come in. Right. Because we have been failing our children for the past 30 freaking years. This stuff has been spiraling out of control, and we have not stopped it. We have not done enough as a community. And we have to keep in mind that real change has never been brought about by government. It's always been brought about by the people banding together saying, enough is enough, let's stop this crap. That's how real change has always been brought about. And until black men and men stand up and take that mentality, this stuff is going to continue to spiral out of control.
Mm. Mm. That's true. That's true. So there's a book that that my wife and I are reading. It's called Family Driven Faith. It's by a guy named Vodi Bakum. And he talks about how in the past, couple decades, parents and families have just relied on the schools and even the churches to do the job that they're supposed to do in the home. So Absolutely. What they do is they basically say, I'll drop my kid off at Sunday school. I'll drop my kid off at school, and I'll just expect the school to teach them the morals that I believe. I expect them to raise good adults, and then one day they'll come back to me. They'll just be a good adult, ready to go. And sadly, the church isn't set up to do that. The church was never designed to do that biblically. Secondly, the church is just supposed to add on to what you should be teaching them already. And then when it comes to the schools, one of my good friends, Hafiz, he has a podcast called the Roommates Podcast. And me and him were talking about this. And a guy named Jordan Peterson that he knows pretty well mentioned how when men are passive or men are not stepping up, or just people in general, parents that know these things are going on aren't stepping up, someone bad is going to fill that gap. So there was a time when school board, I don't have time for that. I'm working a job. Let the people that don't have jobs do that kind of stuff. And then what do you get? Then you get the blue-haired, feminist lady that's pushing these crazy agendas onto the school system. And then you ask, well, how did this happen? Because no one else wanted to do it. And she obviously had the time. She wasn't doing anything else. And so now she pushes and teaches your kids what she wants them to know. Right. And so when we don't decide and take responsibility for our communities and things like that, that's what's going to happen. And so you're right. We need to step up. We need to do something. And we can't just wait for people to say, okay, let's just hope that the right person gets put in charge, because sometimes maybe God brought you there so you could be the person in charge.
Absolutely.
But you're praying for somebody else to show up. You know.
Let me tell you that the reality is that men have dropped the ball. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Men have literally dropped the ball. Anytime you have men who are more concerned with Xbox and getting home to play a damn game, and I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about grown men who are more concerned with a damn video game, you understand, and running the streets with their boys, as opposed to being home with their family, creating that dialogue, creating that protection, that covering that a family needs in order to thrive and to be successful. Anytime you have young men between 20 and 40 years old who know rap lyrics to Little Baby better than the damn kids, you understand? Who are quoting these lyrics that degrade and call women B's and H's better than the children, that's a problem. You understand? So the fact that we know that men are failing our children, it becomes incumbent upon us to take charge of that post and help that child. Whether that child is biologically yours or not is irrelevant to the conversation. The fact that that's a child, it's just like a woman. See, back in my day, when we couldn't ride down the street and see a lady or an old woman getting beat up or robbed or raped and just keep driving by saying, well, just mind your business. That ain't none of your business. Mind your business. See, back then, we didn't play that. We would stop in the car and getting out and whooping somebody's ass for victimizing some old lady or trying to rape some woman or hurt somebody's child. That's how we acted as a community back then. Today, people will literally see an old lady getting robbed, beat down, or a woman getting raped in the alley and will say, don't you do that, mind your own business, keep going. Don't you get involved in that stuff. That's their business. See,
it's got nothing to do with me.
It's wrong.
Right.
That is a wrong mentality. We have to learn that we are one unit, one family. We have to get back to I am my brother's keeper. I know it's dangerous. I understand that this job isn't for everybody. Everybody don't want to be my brother's keeper. Right. Because some people are just not that strong to want to get involved. You know what I mean? They don't have that heart. See, you got to have that warrior, that lion's heart to say, you know what? I'm tired of seeing our babies die. And if dad is negligent in his duty and that child or that woman is suffering, then damn it, I'm going to offer my help. Now, if they smack my hand, that's one thing. But at the very least, offer the help.
Right.
And then get slapped.
Right. Yeah.
So why do you think men aren't offering that help nowadays? What's changed?
That is a great question. Let me tell you why. Because a lot of our men do not know what a man is. First, you can ask the average man or the average grown person, brother, what is a man? Define some of the attributes of a man. They will give you some old frivolous ass answer. Well, a man is, he just, he handles his business. That's what a man is. They'll give you some old frivolous ass answer. They won't say nothing about being responsible. They won't say nothing about protecting the home. They won't say nothing about spiritually leading and feeding your family. They won't say nothing like that. You understand? So a lot of these so-called men don't know what it is to be a man. That's why they walk around like a boy. That's why they still talking language of a baby, talking about, man, I'm about to go to the crib. You understand? That's why they wear their clothes showing their diapers. You understand? That's why they walk around half naked in the streets worse than women do. A lot of our men have been emasculated, and they do not know the duty or responsibility of a man. Men today think that it's okay to cheat on women. That's a very common thing, to just get booty. You understand? That's how men talk today. I'm in a room full of men, and their conversation their topic conversation is about how fine some girl is that just walk by and hitting that. You understand? Their conversation is about how to get high on the weekend. Bro, what we gonna do this weekend, man? What club we going to, bro? Their conversation ain't, bro, you know what? I'm about to spend time with my family. We're gonna do something together, man, and go to an art museum, or we're gonna read a book together. Or I'm gonna take my family out on a date. Just spend time with my family. These men today are more geared towards hanging and being around other men than they are with their family.
Well, you're right about that. But one thing, statistically speaking, I think we're having less families than we used to have. So what do you think about that. The fact that we aren't together as much as we used to be.
Like a nuclear family.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very true, brother. That's a fact. And it's all by design. Again, the system is set up to break the family. You understand? Because there is a plot that is bigger than what most people are seeing right now, because there are people who are plotting and planning 10 years from now. You understand? And they're setting things up in a certain way to destroy people today for their bigger agenda 10 years from now. So this is why, again, this homosexual agenda is being pushed, and this transgender is being pushed all over social media, even on our children now. Even on our children, where it is designed to break up the family. You understand? Fathers are being forced now, and the mother, for those who have children who have father and mother in the house, it is very difficult for that family to be like it was back in the day, because both parents now have to work in order to pay the rent and to bring food into the house.
Right.
So now you got both parents who are working tirelessly day in and day out. You only get 24 hours in a day. If I sleep for 8 hours, then I wake up and go to work for 8 hours. Then I come home and I have to take a shower, I have to get dinner ready, and then I have to get ready for work the next day. Then I've basically eaten up at least 22 hours of my 24.
At least.
How many hours and what time have you spent with your child, your wife, your woman, on feeding them and educating them and asking them how was their day? How much time did you really spend with your child to understand how he thinks or how she thinks, or in order for them to understand how you think as a mother or as a father? Very little time is being allocated to our children and to our women. So men are looking weak. So women now are void. So now you got women running to other women, not necessarily for sex, but just for conversation, for stimulation. You understand? Our children are running to gangs. They're running to the streets because dad ain't doing it and mom ain't doing it. So the kid needs to feel validated and accepted. So what is he doing? He's running to the damn streets. Now he's in a game. You understand? And then he's being misled by that. So it is a vicious cycle that we are in. Excuse my passion. Excuse my passion.
You're good.
I am a person who is hurting because I am in the battlefield every day. You understand? So I'm suffering somewhat of PTSD my damn self, because I feel like that I'm one man trying to fight a freaking whole community to get everybody to open your freaking eyes and stop this madness and stop expecting others to do what you should and must do for your damn family yourself.
Yeah. And, you know, I was even thinking before we got on this call, this may sound weird at first, but let me keep going and you'll see why I'm saying this. It's kind of sad to me that you have a job doing this, because where did we lose the ability to raise our own kids? Like, I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing, but it's sad that we need someone to do that. When, 50 years ago, you didn't need any of that. And I do have a question to make veer it a little bit differently. But before I do, someone wants to request, I just opened up the chat so people can request to come on. I'm going to give you guys maybe 2 minutes and then hop back off so someone else can have a chance. But hop on, share your thoughts, ask any questions, and then hop off so we can get some other people on too. So I'm
Can I have just 15 seconds real quick to say something?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, man. Let me answer that question. Where did we lose that ability? We lost it when we lost knowledge of self. When we lost knowledge of who we are as an individual, as a man, when you lost that in knowing who you are, that force, that God within you, when you didn't read your scriptures, your Bible, your Quran, whatever it is, and you're not living according to some type of discipline structure, then guess what? You're a leaf in the wind. Whichever way the wind blows, that's the way the leaf goes. You have nothing to contribute your life to. You understand?
Yep.
A car has a manual. A car has an operator's manual that tells you how to operate it properly so that it won't break down and you can get the longevity of your vehicle. So it tells you don't put sugar in a gas tank. You don't put water in a gas tank. You put gas in it. That'll keep your car going. Well, what is your manual?
Right.
What is your manual as a human being, as a man, as a woman, as a black man, as a white woman, as a black woman, what is your manual? If you don't have a manual, then guess what? You're allowing someone to tell you what your manual is. You're not living it. That's why it's so important to study self. When I say that, that can simply mean going in your room, shutting the door, and just cutting the lights off and meditating, allowing your brain to work without being distracted by the television, by the phone, by the bills, by the problems of the world. You got to learn to shut that stuff off and get to know who the hell you are. And guess what? Spend time with yourself. It'll tell on itself.
Right. And you know, there you basically quoted, I believe it's in Jeremiah, where it says, "A man who trusts in the Lord is like a tree planted by a river, but a man who fears man and trusts in man is like a leaf blowing in the wind." And it's interesting because I think all of this has to do with the idea of truth. And when you have an objective truth, when you believe there is a God, that God created all this and God created a moral code for us to follow, and that he has a right and a wrong, and he has this is this way, this is that way. Maybe there's some gray area every now and then, but there is objective truth, right? Tangible objective truth. When you get away from that and you say, you know, with this postmodernist idea, and you say, you know, what is truth? What Pilate said to Jesus, what is truth? And you act like there is no objective truth. This is where you get. This is where you get.
Yep.
So, Daniel Gomez, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on real quick. Remember, just make it kind of brief so we can give everybody a chance.
Desire.
Hello? Hey, is this Daniel? Hey, what's going on? We can't see you.
Yes, sir.
Can you turn the light on?
What's going on?
All right.
Let me turn the lights on real quick.
Where are you from?
Alrighty.
Nice.
San Antonio, Texas.
Cool. What's up, man? What do you have to say? Say, ask,
What's
or whatever.
up? I do have one question for the doctor. So how do you feel about father figures missing and family households without father figures? How do you think the household adjusts without
Well, thank you
the
for your
father?
question, buddy. First of all, it's very difficult. Women are doing amazing jobs. Women are doing amazing jobs. It's about to die. I'm at 20. Women are doing amazing jobs at raising children, particularly young boys. But it's a very difficult job for a young woman or a woman to raise a young boy. That is a very, very difficult thing to do. But I applaud the women who are really trying their hardest. The reality is that 80% of the house calls that I do, 80% of the house calls that I do are with single parents, and most of them are women. 80%. So it can be done. You know what I mean? It can be done. Women are strong enough, and it can possibly be done. But it is very, very difficult to do it.
Right.
Do you have a follow-up as well?
I agree.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I said you go. Feel free to have a
again,
follow-up too if you want. Follow-up question or anything like that as well.
Yeah, well, I do agree. I think every household needs a
Sure.
father to create a stable balance. There's a woman and a male. There needs to be the disciplinarian, which is the father, and then there needs to be the loving, which is the mother. So there's both sides. It needs to be a balance
Absolutely.
in the household.
No, you're
so
absolutely
I do
correct.
agree. Thank
and,
you.
you know, I charge every man that knows that to make sure that they're doing that themselves. You know what I mean? So it's almost like reach one to teach one, or teach one to reach one. You know, when you have to be an example. And that's what I see is lacking in a lot of our men today. It's like we know the truth, but for some reason, we're too afraid to step up and take that role as a man. So I appreciate your question and also appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
sir. You
for
guys have a
hopping
great
on.
night.
So go ahead, CeeLo.
Yeah, so you said 80% from your like own personal study and what you've been doing, right? or is that just in general?
80% of what I'm doing, out of
Right.
all the house calls I've done in my career for over 10 years, 80% are with single women, and most of them are African-American women.
Wow. So that's a clear correlation. And those are like, that's a clear correlation between single parent household and behavior. Bad behavior.
Absolutely.
You want to know something interesting? And I'm not saying this to bash. I know someone could chop this up however they want, but watch this whole thing. I'm not saying this to bash, but there are differences between men and women. We're not the same. Obviously, like the prison doctor said, the ones that are in the situation that they're just there and it was not any choice of their own. They're doing their best. I applaud them for doing their best. But there was a study done that found that the majority of people in prison for life, something that either prison or just prison for life, they found that a large majority of like troubled youth came from single mother households compared to two-parent households. But the interesting thing is when they compared single father households, it actually was kind of still in line with two-parent households. And I think part of that has to do with the discipline side. And
yeah, absolutely.
You know,
no, you're absolutely correct. Particularly with the boys, you know, it is very difficult for a woman to raise a young boy. Father gives stability in his right role, in his right state of being, when he's operating in his right state. A father gives a strength to a family that a woman just can't give. It doesn't mean that the woman is less than the man. It just means that the roles are different. You understand? This is why a woman could never be a man and a man could never be a woman. Which is why I have such a passionate problem with this transgender stuff or the emasculation of our men. I cannot express how damaging that is to the family dynamic. You are crucifying you're just obliterating it with this transgender stuff. And also the accepting of it. When we become as a nation or as a people, where we accept that type of language, that type of narrative, and just saying, well, people have a right to be whatever they want to be. Well, yeah, you do. You absolutely do. Just don't push it on our children. Keep that stuff in the privacy of your home. Don't push that stuff into the streets and think that that's okay, or question me of how I live. You know what I mean? Or say, well, you have a problem with transgender people? Yes, I do. That don't mean I hate you. I love you. I love you your madness.
You know what's interesting? What's interesting is this. So you know how people say the big expression today, and we made a video about this, is how people act like love should equal agree. And you don't have to agree with someone to love them.
Absolutely.
And the Bible even says, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, it says, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, love does not boast, love is not proud, love does not dishonor. You know, we know all that. But then at the end, it says, and this is what a lot of people leave out or they skip over, it says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. And that means if something's not true, it's not loving to say, oh yeah, it's true. It's not. That's not loving someone. That's actually hurting someone. And the reason you're so passionate about it, and usually, you know, it's kind of cool because usually I'm the loud, passionate one on here, so now I can kind of relax. But the interesting thing is that the reason you're passionate against it isn't because, oh, I hate these people. It's because you see the damage that it does to the community. That's what you don't like about it. You don't like the action because it's hurting the community. It's hurting the people doing it, and it's hurting the community, and it's hurting the people that are lying to people saying it's okay. And you know, it's just not, it's not good. And I was going to ask you, you know, I know you've seen, I've seen some of your videos about that, but is there a difference in your approach when you go to a home and it's like the boy is the one causing the problem versus like a girl is the one causing the problem? And then what percent is it? Is it usually boys? Is it usually girls? And then what's your approach like depending on whichever one?
Right. Well, it's mostly boys. Most of my work is with young children that are boys. However, I do have a huge amount of girls as well. I would probably, if I was to put an equation, I would probably say somewhere around maybe 70-30, 70% boys, 30% young girls that I deal with, of all nationalities, all backgrounds. And the approach is pretty much the same. It depends upon what the child has done. You understand? Like, all children won't need the same reaction that I would do with a more severe case. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some kids are not that bad. Some kids may just need a strong talking to.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where some kids who are pulling guns on their mothers and calling their mothers B's and H's and spitting on their grandmothers or assaulting their mothers, literally whooping their mothers behinds at 13 years old, putting a foot in their mother's backside. You hear me? I deal with that regularly. Look at my social media. You understand? This is not a joke. These kids are way more volatile than they have ever been in my lifetime. They're beautiful kids. When you get underneath the garbage, they're beautiful kids. They're very smart kids. You understand? But until they get that sternness, that direction, that discipline and structure, these kids are being raised in a way that is so bad that it will make your head spin. And a lot of it is coming from social media. You understand? It is coming from the music. It is coming from the television set. And believe it or not, it's coming from their own damn parents.
So have you noticed a pattern in the parents at all when you come across these problems? I know you mentioned, you know, single moms and stuff like that, but have you noticed a pattern in the parents? Like, are most of the parents like, I don't want to discipline my kid, or are they afraid of the kid, or do they just not care and they're just oblivious to what's going on? What's usually the problem with the parents?
Well, the reality is, by the time they call me, they're desperate. You understand? I'm like a last resort. You know what I mean? After they've exhausted their resources with the police departments, who can't help them very much because they're dealing with kids and they can't arrest kids or really do too much. When they've exhausted their remedies with therapists, when the therapist can only go so far because they're bound by restrictions on what they can say or can do. Well, by the time they call me, they're desperate for help, and whatever they need, whatever I choose to do or say, they are 1,000% behind it. And my program, get this, I'm glad you're sitting, because this is going to be a newsbreaker for a lot of people. In the 10 years I've been doing this, and over 2,000 children that I've engaged with, do you know that to date, as far as my executive team and board of directors, the listings and follow-ups, that at least 90% of the kids that I've interacted with have shown significant progress.
Man.
Wow.
Man, so I'm interested. So what, because I work with youth too, so I'm like interested in, like, what is your process to getting these kids to change their behavior?
If I told you that, I would have to kill
you. Oh, I got you. Okay.
Let me ask you this, because I have a 10-month-old. Okay. I have a 10-month-old. Now he's a baby, so he doesn't do much right now. But there's a lot of different videos that my wife will come across that's like, we don't discipline this way, or don't spank, don't do this, don't do that. And me personally, you said you're Frank, I'm Frank too. I don't think there is anything wrong with spanking your kids if you do it the right way.
The Bible tells you, spare the rod, spoil the child.
So these kids that you work with, are they getting spankings?
From whom?
Are they getting whoopings?
From whom?
Their parents.
Like, before you come in.
That's a good question. That's a very beautiful question. Some, yes. Some are, but it's not the ass whoopings that we received when we were kids. See, my mom had this thing called a Louisville Slugger. You understand? And she had no problem with hitting your ass with it. You hear me?
Yeah.
So the beat downs back then that we got are not the same beat downs that these kids are getting today. And I'm not advocating beating your children. I'm not advocating scarring your children or making blood pour out their head. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you have to have discipline with a strong follow-up. You can't talk the talk and not walk it. You have to say what you mean and mean what you say when you're talking to children. You can't say, well, look, if you do this again, this and this is going to happen if you do it again. And then when the children do it again, your follow-up is weak. You understand? Because now kids are smart, right? They're smart. She just talks. She ain't going to do nothing. And 9 times out of 10, they don't do nothing. You understand? And now that the children can weaponize the police against the parents, that gives them even more strength. Where the kids will literally tell the parents, you hit me, Mom. I'm going to call the police on you and say that you hit me. And guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to get locked up and you're going to go to jail and lose your job. And that's the truth. As weird as that sounds, the reality is that children can say that. And guess what? I have parents, bruh. I have parents who went through that. I have parents who were their children called the police on them. And they wound up going to jail because the child says, my mommy abused me and hit me. And the police took the child's side and arrested the mother. And the mother had to post bond to get out of jail. And she's still fighting in court to get out of those charges. That is a real story that's happening today with many of our homes.
I believe it.
Wow.
I believe it.
And it does it. Now, let me ask you this. Does it depend on the state you're in? Like if you're in Oregon or like California or something, I can see that happening. What if you're in like a Mississippi, you know, where the police officer's like, I'll help you spank them. You know, like is it different depending on where you're at, or is it kind of, you know, is it a trend you're seeing all over the place?
Well, the reality is police officers really can't do that. If they do that or say that, they're only doing that, you know, to help the families, but legally they can't do that. And kids know that. See, kids know the law now better than we knew the law back then. These kids know the law. You understand? Yep. They know the law.
They do.
I'm telling you what I know. I'm not sitting here I'm telling you what I know. These kids at 9 years old know basic law about their rights, about violence and about abuse, what that is. You know why? Because the schools are teaching it to them. The schools are teaching it to them. Their friends in school who have gotten away with this type of abuse towards their parents are teaching their comrades, their classmates on social media and in their bathroom during lunch breaks how to get away with bloody murder at home, how to defy your parents, and if your parents go against you, how to get them in trouble. This is what's happening in our communities and our societies today. You understand? This is why I have such a big problem with our legislatures. I have such a big problem with our educational system. It's because they're weak. They're weak and they're not for the betterment of children. They are for the betterment of statistical scores that are getting them funding, grants, and money. You understand? They're not for children like they used to be. They are passing kids in school today that have a third grade reading in high school. And they're passing them because the more kids they pass, you guys already know how the money thing works.
So
you're not lying, man. You're not lying.
So there's somebody in the comments, Aaron 80s baby. She commented earlier saying like, violence is violence. You know, like you can't. It sounds to me, that's why I wanted to invite her on because I don't want to misquote her words. But it sounds to me like she's kind of anti-spanking. And this is what I've heard from some of the parents. They're like, oh, you're teaching your kid to be violent. But all the kids that I know that didn't get spankings, they are some of the most stubborn, annoying people I know.
One comment, real quick, to that young lady who said that. That is not my argument. She needs to talk with God. Have that question God that. Don't question me. Don't question the public or the listeners or the viewers that violence is violence or violence begets violence. See, don't have that argument with me. Have that argument with your creator if you believe. If you don't, then there's really nothing I can say to you because I'm a man of God. I'm a man of faith. And so my principles and my methods are based on those principles, right? So if you're not a person who does not have that kind of a tutelage or you don't believe in that kind of a thing, the spiritual thing, the God thing, the Bible or the Quran, because both those books tell you that that is what you're supposed to do. And it does not say that violence begets violence in that sense that we're talking about. Now, if you're talking about just repeatedly every day beating somebody's ass and whooping them, sending them to the hospital, and that's your only method of healing or helping your child, that's different. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that some form of discipline, you calling it violence, ma'am. We call it discipline. The Bible tells you spare the rod, spoil the child. If you don't agree with that, then ma'am, you're having an argument with the wrong person. You need to get on your knees and ask God, why is that in his word?
Right. And she said, and I we've kind of made an agreement that we're not going to argue with people in the comments if they don't come on. But she said something like, well, if the child is over 6 years old, that's too old to be getting spankings. And I'm like, my parents must not have got that memo. 6 years old, 7 years old, 8, 9, 10. I feel like those are like the peak years when they need it the most.
You'll be calling the prison doctor.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get ready to call him.
That's why a father is so important, because a father really wouldn't say those kind of comments. You know, fathers, they understand what that kind of discipline I'm talking about, what it means. And I'm not bashing the young lady who made that comment. God bless her heart. She just don't know. You understand? So I'm not bashing her. But that's why a male figure is so important when you're talking about young boys particularly, because they understand what kind of discipline I'm talking about, and they'll know how to apply that appropriately where you won't see it as violence, ma'am. You understand? Right. But again, 6-year-old is not too young to discipline in that way. Actually, a 14-year-old is even not that old. Now, whether a 14-year-old accepts it or not, that's a different story. But when you raise a child up in the way he should go, then I guarantee you, most children, if you love them correctly and show them the right discipline from the birth, from the cradle, when he gets 14 and the father got to discipline him in whatever way that father chooses, I guarantee you that child will receive that. He may be mad about it, but a father ain't going to allow a 16-year-old to get away with bloody murder and think that he can just walk over the mother or the father and do what the hell he want to do. A father would know exactly what kind of discipline and structure that he needs to apply to his child. That's the difference of having a father in the home.
Yeah, man. And I would even say when it's done the right way, like I would like to think my parents did it the right way. I got whooped, you know, from when I was a baby all the way up to I was almost in high school, right? Bring a bag right home, that was it. Acted up at school, that was it. So now I respect them even more looking back. Like, man, my parents, I always loved my parents, I always respected them, but I look at them like even higher now, like, man, they were really looking out because no one else had to teach me like discipline.
Exactly.
I always got it from them.
Exactly. Yeah, so, you know, people have these weird, you know, it's frustrating, man, when somebody can tell me, right, and I'm not Gandhi, right, when somebody can tell a man who has been going into homes for over 10 years, mentoring over 2,000 children with a 90% success rate on transforming these kids by the advice that I give and the discipline that I give, right, can tell me, well, your methods may not be correct, or, you know, you shouldn't do A, B, C, or D. When them themselves do nothing. Right. Them themselves have no sense of mentoring or going into any gang members' homes or dealing with kids who carry guns on their mothers, who are pulling guns on their mothers at 13 years old, boys and girls. I deal with this regularly. Right. So for those who are listening, please understand that these kids are not the same kids that were back then. Some of these kids are so violent that you can't just talk them to death. You can't sit there and say, well, let's go to therapy. He needs therapy. They've done that, man. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many parents call me over 10 years? Do you know how many hundreds of parents I've dealt with that have had their children in therapy for 3 years and have not gotten the results that this organization has gotten because we know what we're doing? So please, when you make your comments, understand you're not talking to a novice. You're talking to a professional who has been doing this stuff for 10 years with a great success record. Now, if that don't apply to you and your kid, then you shouldn't be listening to this program. Otherwise, I would advise you to sit still and just take this and suck it up, ma'am, and use it.
So she said, someone else said they want us to try to send her a request, and then she said she's ready. So I'm going to send her another invite. And I just want to go ahead and say this. I may have misquoted what she was saying, but I want to give her the chance to kind of share something. So where are you from? What's your name?
So I'm Ashley from Houston. I'm a nurse practitioner.
Oh, nice.
I have 3 kids, father is involved, raised in church. To say that someone's single mom and put them in a category, I spanked my children. I believe in it 100%. But to a point when they're teenagers, you shouldn't have to do that at that point. My point is take things and discipline them when things are matter to them. Spanking is, they didn't act the same way spanking younger versus now. When you can't spank a 14-year-old and expect it to get away with it. Like, you have to do things that are disciplined to them, taking their phone away, social media, all the things that they respond to versus spanking. That's just violence on violence. So, what are you teaching them?
So let me ask you a question real quick. So I don't disagree that, I'm not saying, and I don't think anyone here is saying spanking's the only way. I don't think anyone's saying that, but I do think that there is a big gap between, and maybe it was a typo, between 6 years old and a teenager.
Well,
the
Bible says your child was raised at 6 years old. As far as like fundamentals,
where does it say that?
It says it. I remember reading it. I remember listening in church.
I've read the entire Bible. I've never seen that verse in there.
Okay.
Now, I'm not, you know, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole or anything, but I think that, like you said a teenager. Do you qualify an 8-year-old as a teenager?
No, I'm talking about teenagers. You don't spank teenagers.
Okay.
As far as me and my children. Yeah. Now, they're not in gangs. They go to church every Sunday. They're good kids, but I don't feel the need to spank them. Now, everyone is on a case-by-case basis. If your kid needs to be spanked at 14 years old, that's between you and your child, not anyone else's discretion.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we were saying. But it sounded like you were saying, it sounded like you were saying that's inappropriate, and you said that's violence. It can be at that point.
If you leave marks, it can be inappropriate.
But my thing is, it sounds like to me you're saying that you just said if a parent, if they understand that's what their kid needs and they do that, then you're.
But if you leave marks, it's inappropriate. As a healthcare professional, it's inappropriate.
So what if
it's considered abuse?
Well,
if you leave marks on your children,
you can have sensitive skin.
It doesn't matter. If you're leaving marks on a child, it's considered abuse. It's too forceful.
But that's something that we came up with, that we decided we consider that.
As a healthcare professional, we have to report it.
Okay. I'm not saying that that's not what the law is. I'm just saying that I don't think that that's the standard that actually breeds for the best results.
But if you're taking your child enough to leave marks, then there's something else that you should be doing.
Before we go down that rabbit hole, and I'll hand it over to the prison doctor in a second. But my main thing was this, and it kind of was avoided a little bit. You said 6 was the limit, and then now you keep saying like 14, 15-year-old. I'm talking about, like, what about
6 years old should be fundamentals that you
8-year-old
should have with your children and have your routines that you're doing with them. If they're acting up after 6 years old, then there's other issues going on. There could be psychiatrics that are undiagnosed. There could be other things besides that. You can't just say, oh, we're just going to beat you.
No one's saying that.
I'm just saying, I've experienced it with my kids and their father, how they beat too much that I did not agree with. And I don't like it. So,
okay, that kind of answers the question of why you kind of have that mentality about it.
No, I think everything is a balance.
Yeah,
I
think it's a balance too. But the problem that I'm, like I said, again, 2 things that are throwing me off. One, is a spanking going to hurt a 14-year-old more or a 6-year-old more?
You're going to hurt the mental capability of a 14-year-old when you're spanking them.
Which one
should be appropriate?
Which one is going to be more traumatic? A 5-year-old getting spanked by a 210-pound man, or a 15-year-old that's 200 pounds getting spanked by a 200-pound man? Either way, depends if you're leaving marks. They're both inappropriate. Okay, no, you're not leaving marks in either. The spankings for both. Which one is going to be more physically effective? If you agree with spanking them, then you need to talk afterwards and say, this is why I did it. You're avoiding my question. I'm saying which one affects more, because you said at 15 I'm not a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I would not have to agree. I would have to agree to disagree that you would probably need psychiatric on another one. I'm not saying that spanking is on which one? Me and my children. What's the other one? Huh? You said on the other one you'd need psychiatric. So a 14-year-old, if you spank them, in my experience, you get violence on violence, and they don't respond the same. So now you need to discipline them. I'm not saying that you should not discipline them.
discipline them to things that matter to them.
But
Social media, going out with friends, whatever. Spanking is not appropriate. A 6-year-old, if I need to spank a 6-year-old, then I agree with that.
Aaron, right? Aaron,
yeah.
You got to slow it down real quick. Let me at least finish my statement before you keep going. All right, you're kind of glossing over this point. You're saying a 15-year-old is going to be affected psychologically, and it's going to be more traumatic to a 15-year-old. What I'm saying is a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old that's much smaller, and a flick feels like World War III versus a 15-year-old. It's kind of the opposite, where a child that's smaller will be more affected by a spanking than almost an adult that's older. When I got to 12 years old, spankings from my mom didn't hurt anymore. I could get a spanking from my mom and I didn't even care. When I was 5, any spanking hurt bad, and I was crying every time. By the time I was 12, my mom's spankings didn't hurt. So that's why I'm confused when you keep saying, "Oh, well, it's an act of violence now," and it's
no, I'm not saying it's an act of violence, but like 14-year-old responds different to a spanking versus a 5-year-old. Can we not say that? Because you just said that.
I'm saying, yeah, but you were saying before that at that point it's violence. You're violating this child, and it's violence.
From my experience with my children who are not in gangs, are not bad children, straight A students, violence on violence doesn't work for them.
Prison doctor, go ahead.
Let me sum this up real briefly, because I don't want to take up too much time from other people who want to make comments. First of all, thank you for just coming on, and thank you for your comments, Access. How people learn is by having people voice their opinions, whether we agree with it or not. Let me just say this, ma'am. You're talking to someone who has a stellar record with children. I've been doing this a long time. I've been into over 2,000 homes, and I've mentored over 2,000 children. Very good stellar record with how knowing the methods and appropriate things to do with children. I don't know if you've ever done house calls before. I don't know how many you've done. I don't know your situation. But let me tell you this. Until you are going into these parents' homes and you are facing the problems that some of these parents are facing with their children, again, you are dealing with mothers who are being spat on by their 9-year-olds. You are dealing with mothers and grandmothers who are in chokeholds from their 12-year-old sons who are bullying and abusing their parents.
So you're on the extreme situation.
Ma'am, let me finish. I allowed you to finish without being interrupted. I asked you to allow me to do the same. I deal with this daily, where these kids are so out of control. Now, what you experience, that's a different level of a child. They may not need that. They may not require that. But for you to suggest or to give your thoughts as far as saying something is wrong or right on how a mother chooses to discipline their child is, to me, is not even, is wrong. It's just flat out wrong, because you're not in their household. No one is judging you on how you raise your kids, right? If they're successful, praise God. You've done a great job, ma'am. But you cannot come on here on an audience show where viewers are listening and parents could possibly take your advice and listen to you, and you're sitting here telling them what works in your house should work in their house. That's not factual. It's not logical.
I was defending myself.
Well, ma'am, you're on the show. You made a comment. Why are you on the show? Because this show is for the viewers. So for you to say anything about what works in your house and then take it across board to say what other parents should do or what's wrong or right with other families, to me, you're wrong on doing that, ma'am. So you should just click off. When we do these shows, shows can potentially harm or help thousands of viewers, right? Because people are listening to this show for a reason. Because you have an audience. You have something that people like about listening to your show. So those viewers who come onto your show, you have to be careful about those people who make those kind of comments about across the board how it should work because it works in their home. I never do that. If it works in your home, ma'am, then keep doing it. But don't come on a national show or a local show and make statements about how another parent chooses to discipline a child, whether it's right or wrong. If that mother is not kicking that child's ass to the point where they're going to the hospital and they're bleeding and bruised up like that, that's a different story. Whatever force she uses with a 6-year-old to a 14-year-old, that's that household's decision, period.
Right. And the thing is, and someone else wants to hop on too, the thing is that, she mentioned, she was saying these things in the comments. She's saying now, hey, it was just, You know, I'm just saying my opinion, like what worked for me. But before she was saying, this is inappropriate if you do this. So, you know, I'm glad it's working for her. But I mean, like you said, you've seen the worst cases, and you've seen some of these cases going on across the country. You know, her kids are going to church, and she doesn't have to deal with these problems that you're dealing with. And so if someone who has those problems tries her strategy, it'll probably backfire.
Absolutely.
So
Right.
we got someone else that wants to hop on. Let me see. Charlene, blessed and favored. Chris. Oh,
Hi.
hi.
Hey, how you
Charlene.
doing?
Good night. Yes. Good night. I have something to say about some of the stuff that she was saying. Me, myself, I am a single mother, but my kids are grown and gone right now. But I had to, my mother was raising my sister 3 boys, and she asked me to raise them. The last one is, he just recently graduated high school. He's in the 2nd year of college. I never had any problems, but it's the way that I was raised that I instilled into them. My mother was also a single parent, and she raised 12 of us. So I got spanked with an extension cord. She'd make us, we had a tree in the backyard. You did something wrong, you go out there and you pick that switch. And don't bring one back that will break. I don't want one that will break. You couldn't bring that in. And you know, that's just the way I was raised, and that's how I raised them. Lo and behold, Lord, when I took on that job, I knew I had to change my life, because by then my children were grown and I had just started to live my life per se. So once I took that one on, I had to change, go back into church. See, it really starts at home, and a lot of the parents don't realize that. It really starts at home. They're looking at everything you're doing. They're listening to everything that you're saying, all the way down to the music, the stuff you're watching on TV. You know, all of that's involved in raising children. And you can't expect those children to walk this chalk line if you're not walking it with them.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
I never went to bed at night not knowing where my children was.
Right.
My kids or my nephews, they going to bed or going wherever, doing whatever, because I know they can't be at home. How you at home in the bed sleep, and your 12-year-old out here stealing cars and robbing people and all of that, you know? So it really starts at home. What some of what she is saying, I thought was nonsense. You know, I'm black. I was raised in a black family, in a black house, so everything was totally different. My mom was just like the prison doctor. She was a drill sergeant. You know, she was also a single parent. My mom raised all of us. She worked 3 different jobs. So my older brothers really had to babysit us, comb our hair, and make sure we went to school and didn't get in trouble in school. But it's the fear that she put in me. So therefore, if I'm hanging with the wrong crowd and I know they're about to do something, the first thing came to my mind was, my mama gonna kill me.
Right.
My mama gonna kill me. So I'm turning around going the other way, because I already know what the consequences are.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff that the children do today, not only they teaching them that in school. I know somebody whose son, I think he was about 10 or 11 at the time, he stole her car, brand new car, same day she got it. He stole her car. Him and his friends went on a joyride. He hit some parked cars, and the people called the police. They followed him back to the house. You know what? It was also during the pandemic.
Yeah.
The police told this girl, they could not take him to jail because of the pandemic. Wow. He said he could go out here and kill somebody right now. I'm not telling you to do it, but he could go out here and kill somebody right now. It's nothing we could do. Well, why would you say all of that you said anyway? So you know what that did? That opened up the door for this kid to start doing more and more stuff, more and more. Like it just, once he knew, oh, not even the police could take us to jail. His mama cried and everything for them to take him to jail. He needed to be punished for what he did. They would not.
Let me ask you. Well, let me ask you a question and then say something. One, are you from Louisiana?
Yes, I am.
I can tell.
Accent.
I can tell the accent.
Yeah.
And then two, you're right. I think it's kind of what, I think the thing you're seeing is, how bad it can really get. And
yes,
I think the people that are like, oh, they don't need that. Maybe they just have kids that don't do that. So they don't understand. And so I think that's kind of what happened with that last caller. And so I appreciate you for sharing. Is there anything you want to add, Prison Doctor, to that?
Thank you for your comment. But again, it goes back to, you can't judge every household the same. Some of these parents are experiencing some atrocities with their children that are violent beyond what that lady has probably experienced. I'm telling you, I go into homes where these little boys are choking out their grandmothers into submission to get what they want. That they are threatening to blow their mama's brains out because they're in gangs, saying, "Mama, I'll freaking kill you if you don't do A, B, C, or D." I deal with this stuff. So some of these kids, you can't talk to little Johnny the same way. You can't do it like that. You understand? It don't work like that.
Because it worked for her, that doesn't mean it worked for me. Right. Now, I raised 3 boys. With my son before, I raised 4 boys. But you know what? I tore them out the frame when I had to. Not to the point where I left bruises and marks all over them, but they knew that I meant business and don't try that one no more. And then another thing, you can't just let them slide with little things, because children try you all the time. They will try you all the time just to see how far they could get away with some of the things that they do. But if you I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna wait till it all pile up. You don't do that. You don't do that. You should address each matter as it comes along. It comes along. When by the time it all pile up, you're so full of anger, and God knows what'll happen if you put your hands on that child. Now the police got to come in. So it shouldn't even come to that. Just address each matter as it comes along.
See,
don't let nothing just slide.
Sometimes children equate that with love. See, love is a very interesting thing, and children perceive it in certain ways, right? There's love and discipline. I'm not speaking about killing your kids and whipping them to the point where you got blood pouring out their behind. It's not what I'm saying.
But my mama will whip us and then tell us she loves us. Say, I did it because I love you. And I'd rather do it here than to let you go out there in the streets and somebody do it to you out there. They don't love you. So people need to understand, it's so these things, but they're so different from household to household. So that's why we can't put this thing in a box and sell it to the community and say, well, this one way works. That's not reality. You have to assess the situation that you're dealing with. You have to know what homes you are going into and what those problems are and what the psychological, if there's mental health issues with this child, if there's mental health issues, you can't go in there like that. You understand? It's a whole different dynamic. But for people, that's why it's so not cool for her to make that statement and just say, well, you shouldn't do this because that's not what she does in her home, and that's what worked for her. You can't do it like that. You have to assess the family situation. When we go into those homes, we don't go in there and apply the same type of structure that we do in another household. They're all different. This is why we get a whole briefing. My executive team gets a briefing from the parents. We get a whole diagnosis, find out if the child has mental health orders. Is there a father in the home? Is he a single mother? Is the child being bullied? We go through a whole array of things before I go into these homes. You understand? That's how you have to determine the right course of action. Otherwise, you're going to fail it all across the board.
Charlene, thank you. Thank you for
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Sharing that. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Y'all have a blessed
You
one.
too.
You too.
Okay.
Hey, I was gonna say, even in the same household, I have younger sisters, right? My youngest sister, if you yelled at her loud enough, she starts crying and her behaviors change. Me, I'm different. Like, you can yell at me, but if you told me not to do something, I was probably gonna try it again. But once once I got that switch or that belt or that extension cord, broom, whatever, yeah, the physical pain, I remembered that. I wasn't gonna do it again.
Go ahead.
So that's what it took for me. But for her, it took less. And we're in the same household. So you assess it, like you said, each individual case.
Right. So we got another one. Christina, I went ahead and I see your request in there. Went ahead and clicked accept. But yeah, that's I just wonder. I don't want to be stereotypical, because I'm mixed. I'm black and white. I'm both. Dad's black, mom's white. I grew up in a 2-parent household, both parents still together and everything. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I see a trend in a lot of white families today doing the whole, like, oh no, spankings are bad and all this kind of stuff. I'm just wondering why that, like, where that's coming from. Have you noticed anything in like, because you go to people with all different backgrounds, right? Do you ever notice the difference when you go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because it's a culture difference. That's why. There's a culture difference. When you're raised a certain kind of way around a certain family dynamic or a certain culture, then we tend to gravitate towards the way they did things. And we grew up in our culture where discipline was a very serious thing. And it came out in various ways that other cultures may not deem are the appropriate ways to do it. Not saying that they're right or wrong. Like I said, every dynamic is different. African-American kids are somewhat a little more tougher. That's just a reality. It's not a racist comment. That's a reality. You know what I mean? African-American kids are a little more rougher because of their upbringing and because of their situation, which also deals into an economic thing of why they are the way they are. You understand? So there's many factors that shapes the culture, right? So our children are a little more hardened because they're a little more deprived economically, socially, educationally. So they had to grow up a little more grittier. You understand? The music, the African-American music is a little more grittier. You understand? Our kids don't sit up there and listen to country music all day or the Bee Gees. You understand? Or Taylor Swift. You understand? So it's a little more grittier. We're listening to Little Baby. You know what I mean? We're listening to, music that a little more rough.
The drill music.
You know what I mean? That drill music, my man. You understand? So those kids and their parents are shaped a little different, where they have to use certain types of force, pressure, to get the results they're looking for. Where white parents, sometimes their kids are not, necessarily that edgy. You know what I mean? So they can maybe have a different kind of conversation. When I
what's
do
interesting?
certain families, I don't go in the same. I don't go in on level 10. Some kids I can go in on level 1 and just have a little conversation with him and get him or her corrected. And it don't take me nothing but an hour to do it. You understand? So it's just different.
Yeah.
Hold on. Christina's trying to join. So the thing that's interesting to me though is, like, I find that more the conservative or rural white parents, they lean more towards that stuff, still spanking and stuff like that. When it comes to more like the new age, very liberal white parents, they're kind of against that. Because like my mom, she grew up like on a farm, I think, or something, but she was a girl and she got spanked, and so I'm just curious, I don't know what it is. I really don't.
It's just a culture difference. That's all. It's not, it's just, we dance differently. You know what I mean? We do things that's different. That's all. Each culture has its own unique way of and style of disciplining their children, of characteristics about their culture. But let me touch on this real quick, which goes into the point of knowing who you are, right? When you know your history, when you know your upbringing, when you know your language, when you know where you're from, those things are very important. Our people don't know that much about who we are. We don't really study about our family dynamic, our culture, our heritage, our language, none of that stuff. You know what I mean? So when you're dealing with other ethnicities, right, racial statement, it's a factual one. They are more inclined with their history to a degree, right? They pretty much know what their music is, their language is, where it came from, their culture, all that. They kind of know that a little more than what we do. And that's a problem. And the reality is that once Black people come to understand who they are, understand their culture, their language, their heritage, their traditions, it will actually bridge a lot of the racial divisions that we're having with each other.
I agree with that 100%.
I agree.
One thing I did want to say, it seems like today, there's been a push to, like, growing up with my parents, I was afraid of my dad. I was afraid of my mom. Not afraid to, like, I couldn't speak to them or anything like that, but, like, I had, like, reverence for them in some regard, right? As far as, like, discipline goes. And today it just seems like, from my experience from working with kids and parents, I've worked in, like, behavioral health centers where the kids lived on campus year-round. I've worked in the school. I'm an advocate for the youth. And it just seems like parents today kind of just want to be their friends, like talk it out with them, and they have a choice. They have feelings. They have all. And it's like when I was growing up, I didn't have choices. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have all these options.
Yeah.
If my mom made something and I didn't want it, I just didn't eat. Like that's how it was. And I didn't get to call CPS or anything like that. I just went to bed hungry.
And you know what? So my wife was talking to somebody, to a friend of hers, and she was kind of, they were talking about disciplining kids and stuff like that. And she said, one time, my 4-year-old did this, and I was so mad, and I saw how scared he was when I was going to discipline him, and I never want to see that look on his face again. So I just talk it out with him. I just talk with him. And my wife was kind of like, he's 4. There's nothing to talk about. And yeah, he's afraid because he was going to get spanked. Or he was going to get, because he did something wrong. Like he's supposed to be afraid. And I think that's why a lot of people don't like this, but you seem like you'd probably agree with this. I truly believe that's why fear of the Lord is the beginning, not the end, but the beginning of truly coming to love him and really walking in his ways. Because if you don't fear him, like, well, what are you going to do? Then you're not going to have any reason to want to walk in his ways. Because when you're young, sometimes fear is all you're going to need. It's the only thing that can motivate you.
Let me ask you something. When you go into the jungle or you go into a forest and you run into a bear that you see 10 feet in front of you, what do you do?
I'm praying.
Afraid.
I'm praying.
Are you running? Are you running towards the bear?
No.
You're standing still, frozen, or you're busting wind. You're breaking. Is that not correct?
Right.
The first emotion that you have when you run across that bear is fear.
Yep.
When you see that bear and you hear that bear's growl, you obtain an emotion called fear, which paralyzes you from making an approach on that bear, right? Mm-hmm. Fear can save your damn life. Fear can save your life. You understand? This is why you should fear the Lord in a reverence type of way. But you should also fear your parents. It doesn't mean that you fear them in a way where you think that they're the worst people in the world and that if you cross them, they're going to kill you. Right. See, people take these things so literal and they blow them out of perspective and they just mess it up. You know what I mean? That's not what it's talking about. Yes, they should fear their parents. Parents are not friends. You should not be friends with your children. That is a big mistake. You're not their friend because a friend comes with a different definition of an action of how you treat somebody.
Right.
You don't treat your children in a friendship type of way. No, you treat them in a parental type of way. That word suits itself. There's enough meaning in the word parental that you don't need to be their friend. You understand? Because in the word parent, it means all the things that encompasses raising your child appropriately, protecting them, and giving them the tools they need to be successful in their life.
Yeah, and a friend, like, she loves my friend. If he tells me to do something, I'm going to say, you can't tell me what to do. So when your kid views you as just a friend, they're going to say, you can't tell me what to do.
Yep.
So
that is a fact. Yeah. That is an absolute fact. That is an absolute fact.
So this is I know you probably don't have a lot of time, so
yeah, I was about to say, man, look, I'm sweating. Y'all got about 15 minutes with me, man. I got to go.
Yeah. So Christina, for some reason, I keep pressing accept. It's not bringing you on. I don't know why. But I just wanted to say this. I've seen some of your videos where you've gone to like school boards and government meetings and stuff like that to talk about what's going on. Do the parents really know all the stuff that the media and the schools and these people that are supposed to be protecting them are really pushing down their throat? Do they know what's going on, or do they just not care?
Yeah, both. Yeah, a lot of them know. A lot of them don't care. A lot of them feel handicapped that they can't make a difference. A lot of people are in the mindset that one person can't make a difference, so they just mind their own business. They don't make any noise about it because they feel at the end of the day, who am I? What am I going to do? I'm one person. But what they don't realize is that Jesus was one person. Moses was one person. Dr. King was one person. Harriet Tubman, one person. Rosa Parks, one person. Malcolm X, one person. You understand? One person can make a difference, but you have to have the tenacity and the determination to step up and do something. But if you take the role or the mindset that your voice, one person, really can't make a difference, then no, you won't step up and do nothing. You allow them to pull the wool over your eyes and your son's eyes, your family's eyes, the community's eyes, and you won't say nothing. But until you recognize that your one voice is bigger than any other voice out there, things won't change.
So when it comes to these lies put on the culture, right? And I've had a conversation about this. Like I said, we'll be getting off here in a couple minutes. But I saw one of your videos that really resonated with me, where you're talking about like the modern rap music and just the movies, everything that is pushed onto Black Americans and boys in particular, to where they feel that as though, even though I may not be in this environment, because I'm Black, I have to be this, right? There was a kid that grew up in the same neighborhood I grew up in, two-parent household, solid community, and, he went off and killed somebody with the gun, with the unregistered gun. And, I'm just sitting here thinking, why did he feel like he needed to be that way? Well, why? And then when I look back and you look at early, in the 1900s, blackface, right? What was blackface? It was when white actors would cover their face black and put all these negative characteristics on Black people, right? They say, oh, they're lazy, they're this, they're that, blah, 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 blah. And you had white people doing that, right? They're dangerous. They're all these other things. Now, people get upset with me saying this. I don't know why. But now you look at like BET Awards, and we are celebrating people saying, these are all icons. Give us the, Young Baby or, NBA, whoever. Like all these people talking about these negative things. And then we say, those are our icons. It's not a white guy dressing up anymore. Let's take the worst people that are doing the worst things, talking about killing people and doing all this, and let's post these people up as the icons. And then we just say, oh yeah, those are our icons. And then we want to say, oh, but I'm mad when someone stereotypes me as this. Even though I've been saying, these are my icons, this is my culture, this is who I am. And then you want to get mad when someone stereotypes you as that. In the same way, when you look at with Black women, right? if someone were to say black women are loud, black women are obnoxious, they're out of control, all these other kinds of things, they say that person's crazy, racist, all these other kinds of things. That's true. That is racist. That is all those types of things. What about when Tyler Perry makes a movie about it? Then it's funny. And then you want to say, let's support that. To me, that's the same thing as a white guy dressing up and putting all these negative characteristics out there. But for me, I believe that until that changes, you can end racism tomorrow. And if those things are still there, those problems will still be in effect. And the problem is when we try to get rid of some of those things, there's an emotional connection to, no, thug life. I like that. There's not going to be a solution. We've got to let it go. And what are your thoughts on that? Because that's kind of what I thought when I heard you kind of share that in that video, and it really resonated with me. But I want to know your thoughts on that too.
Well, the reality is this, that black people are good at rioting or, you know, having a rally when a white officer or a group of white police officers beat and kill a black man. You know, white people are good for wanting to march on the steps of the Capitol and, you know, and rally and have meetings on police brutality by white people. However, nobody raises an eyebrow when you hear about black on black crime. You don't see black people organizing and marching at the Capitol of Washington complaining about how black people are destroying black people. You don't hear about that. So until we can address, you know, black on black crime, I really don't even like to hear about what white people are doing to black people. Because right now, we are the biggest murderers of ourselves. We are the biggest killers of ourselves. We send more black kids to the morgue in a freaking month than any other nationality has ever done. We're killing ourselves now. See, before that could have been stated. Well, you know, white people are racist. White people are killing black people. White people is this. See, you could have said that some years ago, maybe. You understand? Because some of those things were very prevalent with the KKK and all these racist people out here. That's you could have had that argument. Right. Not saying that it's true or not, but that argument would have been more relevant. But today, black people can't have that argument about white people putting their foot on the black man's neck. White people are the ones that's killing black people. You can't have that argument because right now we're doing it to ourselves. And that's just the bottom line, whether you like it or not.
Man. Hey, so let me, before you go, I just got 3 quick questions for you. One, where are you located?
I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. And do you travel like different states or cities, or how does that work?
I've been to over 30 states, different states in the past 90 days doing house calls. Over 30 different states in 90 days. And if you think I'm joking, just go to my Instagram or my TikTok and do the math on it. 30 different states in 90 days.
Wow. Wow. And last question. This is kind of off topic a little bit. But have you heard of Charleston White?
Sounds familiar.
Okay. I had to.
He's somebody, he binge watches all his stuff.
Okay, I had to ask. I had to ask. All right.
But let me say this in closing. Let me just say this final thing. God is everything. And the more we run from God and the more we kick God out of the front seat of our lives and our homes, we're never going to get a wrap on this crime thing. We're never going to get a wrap on none of this stuff that's going wrong in our communities. It's not going to happen. You cannot kick God out of your house. You cannot revise God's word. There are some things that we may not understand that takes deeper meaning, right? And prayer and meditation, and maybe even an interpreter. But we can never take the fundamental basic principles out of the Bible and not apply them. We cannot make what God said is wrong and unholy righteous. And until people stop playing with God's word for their own selfish desires to want to do their thing and realize that until you follow God's law to the best of your ability, or at the very least, don't lie on God. Don't minimize God's word. At the very least, I would prefer you to say, I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a Gnostic. I'm just wanting to do my thing. I would have more respect for a person that lives that life, as opposed to a person that says, oh no, I'm a Christian, but I'm gay. Oh no, I'm a Christian, but I'm a transsexual. Oh, I'm a Muslim, but I beat kids. I say I can't deal with that, bro.
Yeah.
It's not, it's insane. You understand?
Yeah.
If you're gonna be a Christian, be a Christian. That don't mean you perfect. I sin every day. I just sinned today during this hour interview.
Right.
You understand? But I'm not gonna sit here and say that my sins were right or make excuses for it.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
And if you call me out on my sin, I'm not gonna get offended. I'm gonna say, "Dang, brother, you know what? You're right. I apologize. I'm gonna work on that to get better." So when you sit here and tell me, as a homosexual or as a transvestite or transgender, that no, God says it's okay, love everybody. He did say love everybody, but he never told another man to turn his behind up to another man. He never told a woman to go down between another woman's legs. He never said that. He called it an abomination. That ain't gonna change, okay? So I'm not bashing you, and I don't hate you. I'm just calling the truth of the word that you say you believe in. We believe in God on license plates, in God we trust. We got God on dollar bills, on our monetary systems. We got God in our pledge of allegiance to the flag. We got God in the court system where you got to put your right hand upon the Bible to swear upon it to tell the truth. But yet you are lying about what the hell God says do. He says you are not to be gay. He says you are not to be a transsexual. You are to love the way God created you, with your big nose, your skinny nose, your big butt, your small mutt, your long hair, your short hair, your dark skin, your white skin, your light skin. That's what you're supposed to be about, is loving that. I'm sorry. Sometimes I get very passionate.
You're good. You're good, man. You're good. But where can people reach you? And, you know, in case anyone needs to reach out to you.
You can reach me on my Instagram page on The Prison Doctor, The Prison Dr. on Instagram. My TikTok is The Prison Dr. #1, or you can call me at 1-800-369-8932. I'm asking the public to spread my message, spread my word. I know how to help our children, period. All children, black, white. I don't care about color. I don't care about none of that crap. I don't care about politics, Republican, Democrat, Atlanta Buck. I don't give a damn about none of that. I care about saving these damn babies. Period.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you for coming on with us, and we'll have to do it again sometime too, because I feel like it was very good. It was very fruitful, and like I said, we've been following your stuff. I remember when you first came up on the feed, I was like, man, there's this guy, the prison doctor. Look at these reels. You know, we were watching your stuff, so we appreciate the work you're doing. We're going to try to go out and do that in our lives too, and we hope that people continue to spread your message.
Man.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your platform. Both you guys are very intelligent brothers. So honored to be on your show. I look forward to conversating with you again soon. Thank you to all the viewers. Have a great night.